Vandeham Sri Guru.
So you're the only new person. What's your name?
Oh, yeah, J.I.
Chia?
J.I.
J-I-A. And what's your major? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Chemical engineering. I'm graduating in May.
I'm sorry?
I will graduate in May.
Okay.
Last semester I was trying to come here, but I had class on Friday.
But what interests you about VVS?
Just in general, I'm very interested in problems.
Sure. Okay. You from China?
Sorry?
Are you from China?
Oh, yes.
So today's topic is material problems and spiritual solutions. How do I stand? So, to start with, do we have problems in our lives? Maybe we can talk about a little bit what problems we are facing to make it more personal. You want to start? Why to think that much?
It's problem.
Okay.
I mean, maybe like one of my problems is like I'm graduating, looking for a job and all those things. It's like too much of tension
Sure.
is there.
Tension is the outcome of those problems. That's also a problem by itself. Ajita?
Yeah, the same. I'm graduating this May, so I'm waiting for.
You have to use a different word.
I'm waiting for a PhD application. So.
Job-related problems, can't solve a problem. So
Sounds like we can have a great solution to everything.
So you don't have any problems.
Oh, my problem? Not a problem. I have to figure out one by one. But maybe looking for a job is the first priority.
Sure.
I do have a problem, but I don't want to talk about that
Sure.
now.
Sure. That's fine. Do you have anything you can share?
The problem that I have is a little overwhelming. I'm trying not to let it overwhelm me. I'm really trying to just listen to God to deal with it, and not me just deal with it. The problem that I'm facing, it is a material problem, and it's like, do I just let this other person just have it and not just go about my way? But I'm wondering, why would I be brought to this position? It is some material things over a house.
Sure.
And it's like, why would I be brought here to buy this home and then this other person just wants to take it away? And I bought my home for my family, and this other person didn't necessarily buy it for that reason. So
Okay.
do I just let it go, trust God, and that type of thing?
So it's an interpersonal problem.
Yeah.
One of the problem is whether my body.
Yeah, health issues with the
whether
extreme cold.
it's,
Yeah.
So many other things.
So many. But
Pick the most fun one.
the least fun one. Juggling between work, academics, applications, more work, extracurriculars, all that stuff.
Okay. So our life is not supposed to be like this. We're for those who have come here before, the nature of the spirit or the soul is to be always happy. It's eternal and is cognizant, it's full of knowledge. But unfortunately, we are facing material problems. And if you're trying to solve those problems from the same vantage point, what created it is going to create more problems. That's just a given. For example, let's say 100 years ago, people were traveling much slower than today. And so we had Henry Ford create nice cars that are affordable. And now we have cars, but we have this whole issue with oil and pollution and wars over oil. And I mean, it has led to so much. Not saying something else wouldn't have, but a solution leads to more problems if it is from the material vantage point. And so today's presentation is more about exploring really what problems are, understanding them so that we can solve them from a different perspective, from a different paradigm, spiritual perspective. because we are spirit souls. So we have talked about this in the past semesters. What are real problems? So the definition of problem is that something that nobody can run from, everybody has to face it, and nobody wants it. I mean, in some cases, it's just like, for example, if you have a teeth problem, the dentist is very happy. He's going to make money. Or somebody's problem is somebody else's happiness. With these, of course, you can make money off of these too. But I know some people who do, even from that. But these are problems that everybody faces, every species faces, and we don't want it, but we have to face it. And then there are others like interpersonal problems due to climatic changes, tornadoes, hurricanes, volcanoes, whatever. And then there are problems from our own mind and senses. We are anxious, we are scared, there's phobia, all kinds of things that come. So in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, where repeated birth and death take place. But what attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So just to give you a recap, Bhagavad Gita is a book which encapsulates a conversation between Krishna, who's God, we chant his name, Krishna and his best friend Arjuna. And here, Krishna is talking about this part of the equation. This whole thing, this is the Vedic map of creation. 3/4 of creation is spiritual world, and 1/4 is the material world, which is it's like a dense, dark place. It's not illuminated. We need extra, we need these lights, we need sunlight. We have external sources to illuminate us. There's time, there are all these problems. And this place is called Vaikuntha, which means no miseries. And everything is eternal, cognizant, and full of happiness. And we have planets here, we have planets there. So this is our universe. Of many, many, many universes in the material world. And of our universes, there are 14 planetary systems. And we are right here in the middle, the Earth planet. The only place where we get karma. We talked about this in the past. So just for a recap, you know what karma is? Do you have any concept? You do something good happens. You punch somebody, you get punched back. Or you steal somebody and something happens long after you lose somebody. So making it very general, but karma is like give and take equation. You do, every moment you're making a choice, and every moment you will get reactions for whatever choices you make. So Krishna is speaking that over here there are these heavenly planets, and then there are these netherlands or hellish planets, and then in the middle is the Earth planet. And no matter where you are, it is just full of suffering. Over here, as you go up, the highest planet is Brahmaloka. There is long life, like 100 years of Brahma is 311 trillion years on the Earth planet. So they have a very long life. It's very, very opulent. Everything is better there. Everything you want is there, but it's temporary. You still die, and you have to come back, according to your karma, wherever you go and throughout this system, circles and circles and circles, for lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes. Eternally we are struggling like this. The point is to go back there. That's the God's kingdom, and every religion talks about it in different ways, but that's God's kingdom, where it is not temporary, it's eternal. So, just digging in a little bit about the problems that we face. So right now, there are two very important problems, that is food and energy. Right? So we all know about the energy issues with oil and this, that, and everybody's screaming over it. So there is a scientist, I'll just blank it out for now. So there's a lot of research done, and there is this gentleman named William Anila from Rice University, who has done some research to show that happiness and your income actually doesn't go hand in hand. It's quite the opposite. The more money you have, the more open you are to drugs and depression and anxiety and stress and more work, and the more you have, the more you want, and the more harder you work, and the fears are there, and it just leads to a lot more problems than compared to a simple life. And he has done 25 years worth of research. And if we look at our life right now, what the socio-economical situation that's happening, we want more. Everybody wants more. Our power consumption right now is 14.4 trillion watts, terawatts. By 2050, it's supposed to be 44 terawatts. Given all the developing countries that are coming up, they'll start consuming more, and the developed countries will also consume more. So given everything that's increasing, it's going to be incredibly hard to provide power for all these countries. So there is wind energy. People looking at it can provide at best 1 terawatt. Solar power, 1 terawatt. Biomass, 1 terawatt. Oil can provide 11 terawatt right now. Nuclear power, it seems to be the most promising, but to even have nuclear power at that rate, 44, would be, for 44 years, we have to have 1 new nuclear power plant every year at highest capacity to provide energy for 2050, where we're heading. So it's going towards a lot of scarcity in resources, which will lead to a lot of wars, and some people will profit, and most people will suffer. It's just a given. That's always the case. Some people always profit, some people suffer, and those that are profiting also suffer at the end. Like Hitler had to kill himself after all these things he did. So there is really no happiness, there is no solution from the materialistic perspective, unless there's a change in the self. So even the scientist that I was talking about, who did the research about all these power consumptions and everything, his solution to it is, I'm hoping in the next few decades there will be some nanotechnology advancement through which we will have enough power and medicine and whatnot will cover up places like New Zealand or Cuba or area of that quantity with solar cells to have solar power. And these things are not easy to tell, but hard to do. And so there will be problems. But there's never a question about consume less. No, that's not even an option. It's always, okay, how can I'm going to consume more, I'm going to go all out on taking from nature. How can I make up for it? So we've been creative about filling the gap, but not about reducing our consumption. So that's a problem. And that's a problem that needs to be addressed at a very, very grassroots level. And that is a spiritual answer, in a way. So, in the Ishopanishad, which is one of the Vedic literatures, they say that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should, therefore, accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Does this make sense? So what it means is, everything we look around ourselves, everything, it has a source. These tables, this one is made of wood, those are probably plastic. They're coming from a source. That source has a source. That source has a source, has a source. And the ultimate source, and one can call it God or superpower or whatever, there's a source. And if we don't recognize that it belongs to somebody, it has been created for a reason, it has its purpose, then it's like, you go to somebody's house, you pick up the stereo system, you pick up the TV, you pick up the microwave, and you just walk out. It's mine. I found it. It's mine. Right? We don't live like that in our microscopic level, but we do live like that on a macroscopic level. We're living lives where we are constantly consuming things without even recognizing what's happening. Where is it coming from? Who's paying for it? Things are so cheap. We watched that video, Story of Stuff, last time. Talked about the radio, it was $4.99. But it's not $4.99. There's a lot of people paying on the backside in developing countries whose forests are being ruined, their lives are being ruined, they're prone to cancer. There's so much happening. So we're living a very irresponsible life. And let's say karma, or let's say really tangible facts and figures we can see for ourselves. We are suffering, we are not happy. So the spiritual solution is to really dig deep and understand, what do we need, then what do we want? Because our wants are unlimited. It cannot be met with our limited resources. We need many, many Earth planets to make up for what we want. But what we need is very possible. The elephant never goes hungry. The ant never goes hungry. Why should we face poverty? Why should we go through hardships? Right? So, the spiritual solution is to accept that there is higher authority, that everything belongs to somebody, and living a life of gratitude that I take responsibly. So we are honest when it comes to going to stores. We don't just take things. But when it comes to larger perspective, it's nature. So nobody owns it. No, it is owned. There is Mother Nature, and there is a Father God. There is a higher being who's giving us all these things, and it can be taken away. So, in short, that is our solution. So I would like some discussion. Post some questions, and see what we think about, and how we can apply it in our daily lives. And before I go there, I'll just add a little bit more. I talk to a lot of people, and I hear a lot about animal rights and rights for environment and this protection and that protection. And so one can say, these people, why do we need God in the picture? These people are doing great things. They're trying to protect the environment. They're trying to protect those that need protection. Yes, but it's also very, very narrow if you think about it. I know somebody who's a very up there official in PETA, who cares a lot about animals. Practically, that's his profession. But he goes home and beats up his wife. There are many tree huggers who don't like human beings. So you might be liking one species and hating the other. You might be caring a lot about environment, but going home and wasting something else, throwing away food. So it's always a very narrow picture of things. But when you understand everything inanimate or animate, you see around yourself belongs to somebody. And when you invest yourself in building that relationship with that somebody that we call God or Krishna or whatever, then we care about not just things around us, but also conscious beings. As practicing devotees or yogis, we are vegetarians. Because it is an alternative lifestyle. We can live without killing animals. So, as less harm as possible. We use exactly as much as needed. When you come to Krishna house, you'll see very little furnitures. We live very simply. Not that we cannot afford it, but it's just not necessary. And it's easy to clean, it's easy to maintain, it's easy to, we have more money to use in different ways than on, going through, maintaining things that we don't need. Yesterday, we had an event at Krishna house, and this lady was telling me that they just sold their house and moved to a condo in downtown Chicago because it's just every weekend they'd be spending so much time doing chores for their house, and it's just maintenance is so expensive and so much work. And so now they have a simple life, and they're saving money, they have more time for each other, their family, they feel like they can spend time, quality time together, and it just makes sense. So I'll open up for questions, and just let's talk a little bit about for the next 15 minutes or so about how we can apply it in our lives, in our own small way.
I was just wondering about planned obsolescence and our response to it. Like, you can buy a smartphone and it's, as long as the battery lasts and the thing interface is okay, it will last forever. But then there are always, you take a laptop or something, then manufacturers or software providers, they upgrade until your laptop becomes too slow for those things. So what would be your response? What would be the right way?
Your response?
I like old laptops and restoring stuff you've seen, but it's a very difficult situation. Sometimes social pressure where you're forced. Sometimes I've seen job applications say you need to have these skills, you need to have a smartphone, things like that. So it's a very difficult scenario in such cases.
So if you need, then you need. But if you don't need, and you still want it, you cannot afford for it. I had a friend who almost went homeless, and yet he was paying for his iPhone, he was paying for everything he could show off. But he didn't have a place to live. He didn't have money for food, but he wanted to maintain, things that he could show off. And that's just, and it's not very uncommon these days. That's extreme, but in our cases, yeah, go ahead.
That's actually what the song Gangnam Style is about. It's you see all those crazy things that guy does. It's actually mirroring the practices in the Gangnam area. They can't really afford stuff, but it's Korea. So they can't afford stuff, but they buy it anyway for social status. That's what it was ridiculing, actually, the song. It's quite funny.
But what's the community near Gita Nagari? There's some name I forgot.
Amish community. Amish.
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 So they live like very simple life.
Yeah.
No electricity, no.
Correct.
Use natural resources.
Yes.
Thinking about that.
Just talking about a Christian community that lives in Pennsylvania, in the hills of Pennsylvania. I think they're from Germany, and they follow very, very age-old processes. They're very good carpenters. They don't use electricity. They use everything natural. They ride horse-driven carts. Not proposing that you leave your cars if you start using horse-driven carts, but that's how they live. But they're happy. They focus more on relationships, their family and other things, and that's a way of life. Not necessarily saying so. Speaking from our perspective, my question is, how can we use it as students or as professionals? How can we do something in our lives a little less, or at least go in this direction?
It says here, the set aside has its quota.
Mhm.
How would I know what my quota is?
Yeah. How would you do your quota?
Yeah. How would I know?
I'll ask you.
Is it is the quota same for every human being?
No?
No. Like, so how would I decide?
Depends on what you do. Depends on what your needs are. Let's say if you're President Obama, of course you need bodyguards and you need certain opulence, to do what you do. It's a necessity, in a way. Of course, not that they follow only what's necessary, they do more than that. But there are certain things. But for the college student like us, few pairs of clothes, good food, some entertainment, books, that's pretty good. We don't need to have, 4 cars, 5 phones, or anything like that.
But what if you aspire to be more? If you become someone bigger tomorrow?
And what is behind that aspiration? What is behind the aspiration?
I'm just greed.
That is the consumer economics, is you have aspirations. And the understanding is, when there is more production and more consumption, it leads to wealth generation. When there is wealth generation, people are more prosperous. When people are more prosperous, they're supposed to be happy. But a 25-year research from Princeton University proves that that's not the case. You do not naturally become happy just because you have more money. In fact, it is found that beyond $150,000 in salary, motivation doesn't work. Money motivation doesn't work. They have to be motivated in different ways, because it's like saturation. Okay, I have everything I need, car, house, whatever. So it's like anything material. You eat pizza, too many pizzas, and then you're like, okay, I can't eat anymore. So anything we do too much, extreme, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll bring in happiness. So yeah, okay, let's say I aspire for this, this, and this. Great, it's good to have goals. But what are those aspirations going to give me? And that's important, coming back to this principle. Do I want to be in that bandwagon where, following the trajectory that everybody else follows and tries to find happiness? Are my parents happy? Are my great-grandparents happy? Are people who have achieved certain material success happy? We can look at their lives and see for ourselves. Are they spending time, doing drugs and rehabs and going into accidents and depression and whatnot. So is that really the kind of life we are looking for? Because everybody likes celebrities, especially Hollywood celebrities. Everybody wants to be like them. The movies are made exactly to be aspirational. Everybody, especially coming from another country, you think of America as the place what you see in the movies, right? It's not exactly that. And at the same time, those people who are in those movies that we want to be are not the happiest people on the planet. In fact, probably, there is more depression there than in the middle community. Great. So it's about your motivation. And that is why we are at VVS looking for an alternative solution, spiritual solution. And the spiritual solution is finding happiness from within. It's not out there on that dead gadget. It is between conscious beings relating to each other. So we were talking at Krishna House that phones are so attractive because it allows us to interact with other conscious beings. And that interaction with other conscious beings is what is more important than just a dead piece of plastic and metal and glass. And we can deepen our relationships, which gives us happiness, once we understand who we are and who everybody else is. Spiritual relationships are way more stronger than material relationships. Material relationships are based on the body. This is my father, this is my mother, I love them very much. This lady looks very nice, this man looks very nice, so there's some attraction. But as soon as something changes, even the hairstyle changes, even the person starts sticking a little bit, the attraction goes down. So it's just like matter. Matter is temporary. Material relationships are also temporary. Happiness is also temporary if you're trying to build it on that realm. Because as soon as there's a little change, everything changes. Our expectations are something, and then something else happens because there are so many variables leading to those things. Something changes and we're like, oh man, I wanted this, but not in this way, I wanted it a different way. And so there's always frustration, there's always asking for more and more and more. And that is what, this consumer economics is built on. And the alternative is a spiritual alternative. The spiritual economics. It's actually a term coined by one of the high officials from the World Bank. Spiritual economics. Because just looking at what's happening in the world right now, he came to the conclusion that things are going to be very chaotic more and more unless there is something changed inside. Universities teach us skills. We don't know, different people come from different backgrounds, but from our homes we learn certain things, morality and such, which is nice. But there is a little bit more that needs to transform us. And that transformation happens from spiritual knowledge. It's not sentimentalism. It's not thinking about, oh, there's a God and I'm going to kill anybody who doesn't believe in this God or going crazy about it. But it's based in knowledge. And that's why the word Veda is so important. We are a Vedic Vision Society. Veda means knowledge. And the body of knowledge includes everything. It talks about biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy, astrology. We're talking about the universe. That picture is not just a picture. It's hundreds and hundreds of verses giving specific facts and figures about the universe. And it also has knowledge about how to be happy. And so that's what we're going to go through the next few weeks in VVS this semester. Pursuit of happiness, how to be happy. That's the goal. That's the barometer of our success. If you have a lot of money, that means we should have a nice car and a nice house. If you're living in the slums and you have a lot of money, that doesn't really go together. So if you are spiritually elevated, if you're making any progress, the outcome should be you're happy. Smiling face, things outside. Yesterday, one of our guest speakers, he was describing a story, which I'll share with you. That one time a king asked of all the painters in his kingdom for painting something that depicts peace. And so all these people had beautiful pictures of rivers and valleys and mountains and forests and this and that. The king looked and like, yeah, they're very pretty, but still doesn't satisfy me. And there was one person who drew a picture of earthquake. And there was chaos and people were running in each direction, screaming and screeching. And there was a tree and there was a bird. The bird was happily singing. And so the king was like, this is peace. Because the bird is not scared about what's happening everywhere. It's not like ignorance is bliss, not that kind of happiness. It's more about when you throw a child up, the child knows my father will catch me. But in another case, if you're not the father, the child will start crying. So when we have that relationship with the Supreme, there's always that confidence that I'll be taken care of. And it's not a faith, it's a fact. And those of us who are practicing more seriously, we can attest for it. You want to share something, Balu? From your realizations? You were telling me something the other day. Without getting into the details, of course.
What part?
Okay. What is the litmus test of becoming spiritually happy?
Yeah, nowadays, I don't bother about the results. I just concentrate on the actions. So I leave the results to Krishna. So somehow the results have all been good things.
Bala has a 4.0 GPA. and there are many others. We all experience this when we re-establish our relationship. The relationship is already there. When from our side we make an effort. It's like a dog on the street versus a dog with a master. The dog with the master eats what the master eats. Drives the same car as the master, has the same opulence, and it's being combed and taken to a dog spa and being taken care of nicely. So it's like that. When we go back to our father, or we are connected in that relationship, he has all the money, all the intelligence, everything we need. He has it in full, and we have access to all that. So we don't have to worry about this. Just like I said, elephants and ants, they're all taken care of. They don't have to worry about the day-to-day getting a job or getting the right resume or whatever. They're happy. They have everything provided for. We have screwed up the system. And so some people are so-called rich, some people are so-called poor, and there's chaos. So it's just the beginning of the semester. So we are just starting with this conception. This is the first mantra of Ishopanishad. And that sets the tone for the rest of the semester. Is everything we talk about would be where we are. We don't have to change anything. We don't have to go to the Himalayas. Where we are as students, how to bring it back to the spiritual perspective. And we will go through the weeks, and I would like to hear from all of you. How is it making your life better or worse? Hopefully better. So keep that in mind as you do different things. Question yourself, why am I doing it? What is it that I'm doing? And is it something that will enrich my relationship with God, or is it something that will pull me back? Because you're either going in this direction or that direction. There is no gray line. We're always making a choice, and not to make a choice is also a choice. So let's be more thoughtful, and I open up for questions if there is any.